What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, and on today's show, UNLV basketball. What a weird team. Are they good? Sometimes. Are they bad? Sometimes. Nobody actually knows what to expect. Plus, the Raiders have filled all of their coordinator positions. Did they actually get good coaches? I think the best way to describe UNLV basketball is you should never turn the TV off no matter how large the margin of defeat is, or if they're winning. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Here we go. What is UNLV basketball? This is a team that has shown us really, really good moments, really, really good games, and has also shown us some absolutely horrendous games. And I want to go back to their win over Boise State because UNLV played an all-time bad 13 minutes. The first 13 minutes of this game, they had 9 points. They did not score inside the arc for 13 minutes, and they were down 32-9. And they won the game because the second half, or at least the second half of the second half, was nearly perfect. Right? They beat Boise State in overtime despite not having a lead until there was less than 3 minutes to play in overtime. They trailed that game by 23. They trailed by 17 with 8:55 to go in the second half. We saw horrendous UNLV and tremendous UNLV in one game. And that's been the story of the season, right? This team has losses to Tennessee Martin, the blowout loss to Wyoming, the meltdown against Fresno State, but they also have wins at Utah State. They beat Grand Canyon at home, and now they have this hilarious comeback win over Boise State. So trying to sort of put this into some sort of context, or at least some sort of stat, because I love stats. Bart Torvik has a game score. I've talked about it on this show a few times. Basically grades games 0 to 100 on a percentile compared to all other performances in college basketball. So this year, UNLV has 6 games with a game score under 25. That means 6 times this year they have played like one of the 25% worst teams in the country. And I know you think UNLV is bad because they haven't been good for a long time, but the bottom 25% of the country is like the bottom 75 teams, maybe 100 teams in college basketball, right? They're not that bad. They're not at that level. So to have 6 games that have been that poor of a performance is pretty bad. However, they now have 11 games with a game score over 75, meaning they've got 11 performances where they look like one of the top 25% teams in the country. That's 17 of the games they've played this year have been either wildly great or wildly bad. And that's a huge swing from game to game. And what's even more bizarre is it's not even just single games, it's single halves. This Boise State game was a great example of the first 13 minutes. They looked like they were a junior college team playing against Boise State. They couldn't do anything right. And then the last 9 minutes of regulation, they kicked Boise State's ass. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn was unstoppable. And so we even see it within games. The win over Grand Canyon, right? UNLV had a big lead. They led by 15 with 2.5 to go. They won the game by 2 because they couldn't do anything right in the final 2 minutes of that game. It's just insane that they have so many swings, not just from game to game, but in game. And so I don't know, like it feels like the most extreme team we've seen on both ends for a long time now at UNLV. I think one of the best examples was TJ Otzelberger's first year, where that team went 17-15 overall, but they ended Mountain West play playing really well, and they were the first team to beat San Diego State. That was the San Diego State team that was undefeated. They were top 10 in KenPom that year, and UNLV went to San Diego State and beat them, and you're like, what? So we've seen this before with UNLV, but I feel like this is one of the most extreme versions we've got. And I'll be honest, I know I've said this before. I don't know exactly where blame/credit goes. Like it feels like a coaching thing to be that inconsistent. But I don't know what exactly to point to. Like I don't feel like saying, oh, Josh Pastner's not doing great because they're so inconsistent, because like, what's he doing that makes them inconsistent? I don't know. I have no idea, right? Is there something wrong in practice? I don't know. some of it might just be the players are inconsistent, right? The injuries they've had matter, especially the in-season ones with Tyron Jones going out, and the foul outs have been a big problem, right? Big note, they finished this game against Boise State with all of their best players on the floor. None of them are hurt, and none of them fouled out of the game. So, like, there's reasons for it, too. It feels like a coaching thing, but I couldn't tell you what the coaching problem is. So it's not like I want to sit here and just say, this is Josh Pastner's fault. But tune in. You don't know what you're going to get minute by minute from this team. Now, we do have to talk about Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn. This guy has crushed Boise State twice. He has two 30-point games this year, and they are both against Boise State, which is hilarious. And his stat line in the second matchup with Boise State was 32 points on 22 shots. That's not a lot of shots to get to, 36 points. That's not a lot of shots to get to 36 points. And he made 6 of 12 from 3 and all 4 of his free throws. The threes help out a lot there. But my favorite stat of all of his in that game is 1 assist. Like, they gave him the ball all the time at the end of that game. And there was, nope, he's not passing to it. Nope, he's taking the shot. And it worked. He was awesome in that. He was making tough shots in the paint, threes, everything. And the best stat from the overall game, though, is that the last 13:55 of second half and overtime, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn scored 22 points and Boise State scored 19. For 13, nearly 14 full minutes, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn outscored an entire college basketball team, and a pretty good one. I mean, they're not an NCAA tournament team, but like Boise State's a solid college basketball team, and Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn outscored them by himself for nearly 14 minutes. He has entered into like one of the most entertaining players since I've been covering UNLV. And for the record, they haven't been in the NCAA tournament since I've been covering UNLV, so there's no like, oh yeah, that guy led them to the Sweet 16 type of player. It's Amori Hardy, Jovan Mooring, right? Those are probably my two favorites since I've been covering the team. Bryce Hamilton's scoring and like longevity over multiple years was fun to watch. Patrick McCaw was great, but he's kind of in that next tier of guys. He's really, really fun to watch, and he's been really, really good recently. It's 5 straight games over 20 points now, and I think it's, 7 of 8 where he's gone over 20 points. Like, he's doing this consistently. He's leading the conference in scoring. He's one of the best offensive players in this conference. There's just not a lot around them to be consistently good for Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn. So he's tons of fun to watch. And if I was just telling you, watch UNLV basketball play, I'd be like, that guy's fun. And they might blow a game like Fresno State, or they might have a comeback like they did against Boise State. You don't really know. So tune in, because it'll be fun. A few other things from this game. One of it that I found really fascinating is that first 13 minutes where UNLV was down 32-9. They were getting bullied. I mean, they couldn't move in the half court. The Boise State was draped all over them. UNLV had they couldn't move. They couldn't run their plays or run their sets or set good screens. It just wasn't happening. And they got crushed on the rebound. There's a point in this game where Boise State had missed 8 shots and they had grabbed 5 of the rebounds on it. But that completely flipped. The rebounds completely flipped to the point where the game-sealing dunk in overtime that put UNLV up 4 in the final minute, Tyron Jones had a putback dunk. That came on a possession where UNLV got 2 offensive rebounds, right? They couldn't even get a defensive rebound for the first 13 minutes of the game. And then they win the game. They seal the game by getting 2 offensive rebounds. Like, it was pretty remarkable. From that 5-3 stretch where Boise State had gotten 5 of their own 8 missed shots, the rest of the way, Boise State had 18 missed shots that were rebound opportunities. UNLV got 16 of those rebounds. So it completely flipped, and UNLV ended up grabbing 11 offensive rebounds on their own. And the other key to all of that, Boise State's one of the best rebounding teams in the conference. They're a great offensive and defensive rebounding team, and they were very, very good. And I'll say this, another part of I don't understand things. This is part of basketball that, watching, especially watching on TV, it's hard to understand how that flips so hard. Like, how did UNLV get embarrassed for 13 minutes and then it flipped the complete opposite way? I mean, they were going to get smashed. They were going to lose this game by 40 points. It was not going to be close. And then all of a sudden, not just do they stop the bleeding, they come all the way back and win. I don't really know what changed to make that physicality flip, but it did, and it helped in a really, really big way. One other thing from that game, Josh Pastner has been running the same play over and over these last two games against San Jose State and Boise State. The play that UNLV ran to get Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn the 3 to tie the game at the end of regulation to force overtime was this play that they've just been running nonstop. If you check out my Patreon, there's a video up there breaking down this play. It's a good play. They've run it a lot. They get a lot of different looks out of it. So check me out at Patreon, Patreon. That's Patreon. Patreon.com/technicallycorrect with Tyler Bischoff. If you want to get a breakdown of that play, it's a fun play. If you want to understand, oh, this is what a coach does, or what they're looking for when they run some of these plays, I got a breakdown for you. So check out my Patreon to get more of that. Now, here's the last thing on UNLV basketball. Before they played Boise State, the Review Journal had a story out talking about attendance and the changes coming to the Thomas and Mack, like they're moving the band and the student section and the benches and all of that, right? So, but in that story, they talked to Eric Harper, the athletic director of UNLV. And Harper said a few times in that story about attendance that, like, hey, winning is key. Right? Like that's the key to all of this. And it's the truth. We all know that win the game and people are going to show up. There's no real way to gimmick yourself into really good attendance. I will say, it is the truth. I don't love the athletic director kind of throwing his hands up and saying, hey, just win, right? Like, yeah, it's probably the truth. But as the AD, like, I'd like to hear a little bit more like, oh, we're going to try this, this, and this will hopefully draw some fans back in. But it's just, hey, go win games. It's basically saying, hey, Josh Pastner needs to win. There's nothing I can do. I hired Pastner to win games. And if he doesn't do it, we're not having any fans. Don't love that from the AD. But this quote that Eric Harper gave, I thought was fascinating. Harper said, talking about attendance, he said, if you're competing at a high level and you're winning consistently, case in point, University of Kansas. They're in a much older building than we are, but they've won a ton of games to include national championships over and over again. But their place fills up regardless of what time the game is, but that's based on really how they play and as much as they win. So that, I wouldn't say that the age of an arena is an issue at all whatsoever. This is still an iconic place to have a great atmosphere, regardless of the fact that the age of the building. I still think it's a great opportunity and a great facility. Comparing UNLV basketball to Kansas basketball is absurd. Because what Eric Harper just said is, hey, if UNLV wins as much as Kansas does, the attendance will be good. Well, no shit. If UNLV goes to the NCAA tournament every single season, if they win a share of their conference every single season, and if they win multiple national championships, Thomas and Mack will be full. We know. Like, that's not, like, I'm blown away that Eric Harper would bring up Kansas as the example. And by the way, does he think that's possible? Does he think it's possible that UNLV can be at the level that Kansas basketball is? Because right now, Josh Pastner's making $500,000 this season in salary as the head coach. It does jump up to $1 million, but he's making $500,000 this year. Bill Self is making $13 million. Kansas is giving their head coach 26 times more than Josh Pastner is getting at UNLV. There is no way an athletic director can be coming out here saying, well, we just need to be like Kansas and everything will be just fine. What are you talking about? Like, you can't, and you aren't spending anywhere near the amount of money that Kansas is on basketball, right? Like, what are we doing here? Comparing it to Kansas? To be fair to Eric Harper, he did mention that there are other teams on the West Coast that have good attendance, but like, there's no reason he should be bringing up Kansas. Bring up Utah State, right? And by the way, that would be pointing out, hey, the athletic director, is he going to make good hires? Because they've been making good hire after good hire at Utah State, and we haven't seen that at UNLV, but not Kansas. You can't sit here and say, hey, everything's going to be fine at Thomas and Mack. Everything will be fine with UNLV basketball. if we just win a couple of national championships, if we just go to the NCAA tournament every year, Thomas and Mack will be full. You can't say that because that is not a realistic attitude, a realistic expectation to place on this program.
Battle Blast, been serving Las Vegas since June 2012 with the very best in family entertainment. We are proud to provide the best facility, equipment, and service possible. Strap on laser tag vests, step into the 5,600 square foot two-story arena designed to look like a worn-torn city street. An exciting atmosphere filled with exhilarating music, blacklight effects, and fog. Battle Blast also features a viewing deck for those not playing can watch players vest up and catch a view of the action going on in the arena. In between games, check out our arcade and prize center and enjoy tasty treats from our snack bar. Birthday parties, sports teams, group outings, and corporate events. Battle Blast does it all. We want to make your Battle Blast experience so good you'll want to return again and again. Battle Blast is the ultimate destination for family fun and friendly competition.
Technically Correct is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in town. Battle Blast is the best spot for your next event. Kid's birthday party, a corporate event, your own birthday party, whatever it is, check out Battle Blast Las Vegas. They've got an arcade and prizes. There's more than just laser tag. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue. Your next stop for fun in Vegas. The United States men's hockey team beat Germany 5-1 in their final game of group play. So, the United States is now the 2 seed behind Canada in the bracket. What that means is the United States will play the winner of Sweden and Latvia in the quarterfinal. That quarterfinal's on Wednesday, by the way. Sweden, generally considered the 3rd best team in this tournament. However, they ended up finishing 3rd in their group on goal difference because they got upset by Finland. So the United States kind of is getting screwed a little bit because you're playing the 3rd best team in the world in the quarterfinal. That's supposed to be a semifinal matchup. They should still beat Sweden, but not the best potential matchup there. I guess if Latvia beats Sweden, none of it matters whatsoever. Also, I'll say this. The United States had to beat Germany by 10 goals to pass Canada for the number 1 seed in the bracket. And the U.S. was leading that game 5-0 in the 3rd period with about 10 minutes to go. Should have pulled the goalie. They should have been going for the 5 more goals. And whatever, if it gets to 5-3, if you give up 3 shorthanded goals, or excuse me, not shorthanded, empty net goals, then fine. Put the goalie back in and just save the win. But they should have been trying to get to 10-0 on Germany because winning 5-0, winning 5-1, winning 8-0, none of that makes a difference. You either win the game or you win the game by 10 to get the 1 seed. Those are the only 2 things that matter. Also, the women play Monday at 7:40 a.m. in the semifinals against Sweden. There's a chance they've already played by the time you're listening to this, but if not, Monday at 7:40 in the morning is when the U.S. women are in the semifinals. In college basketball, Utah State blew out Memphis on Saturday. 99-75 was your final score there, and that final score is important. So, Utah State and Memphis are playing in the middle of conference season because the Mountain West, everybody has like a bye weekend where you don't play a game, and Utah State took their bye to go and schedule Memphis. The whole reason for this was Utah State was trying to get another good game. They wanted another good opponent on the schedule to help their resume. The problem is that Memphis is 12-13 this year, and they're hanging out at like 101 in KenPom. It's not a notable win. It's not going to do anything for you to beat Memphis. UNLV beat Memphis, right? But Utah State, in this game, ran the score up a little bit. They were leading by 13 with 2 minutes to play. They ended up winning by 24. Again, the final score mattered. And that included a windmill dunk. I think, was it Collins? I think MJ Collins had the windmill dunk in the closing seconds of that game to put them up by 24. Well, the head coach at Memphis, Penny Hardaway, was not happy. He kind of confronted some Utah State players and coaches in the handshake line. He didn't start a fight. He wasn't in their face and yelling, but it was clear he was saying some things about the way that game ended. And then afterwards, Penny Hardaway said on the post-game radio show in Memphis, and thanks to the commercial appeal in Memphis for this quote, he said, "You can't do what they did, though. You can't keep scoring the ball. We came out here to play this game. You've got to have more class than that." And then he went on to specify that it wasn't just the windmill dunk at the end, it was the final 2 minutes where Utah State kept trying to score. Now, here's the dichotomy, because Penny Hardaway is all pissy about sportsmanship or lack of class. Utah State's head coach, Jared Calhoun, is defending it, and he's talking solely about his NCAA tournament resume, because he said, "We would not have scored the last 2 baskets if this were normal circumstances. But the deck is stacked totally against mid-majors now. We almost have to be perfect. Let's call it like it is. Every possession is measured, and we got to score the ball there. Unfortunately, we play by the rules. Those are the rules that Ken Pom, Bart Torvik, and the NCAA selection committee want us to play by. I would have never done that to Coach Hardaway if not for that." So first off, Penny Hardaway can shut up, right? Like you're mad because you scheduled a game to go to Utah State and then couldn't stop them from scoring. Stop them from scoring, right? Don't give them a turnover for a windmill dunk. Get a defensive stop if you're so upset about that. Also, why is Memphis not fired him yet? He's been there for like 7 years, I think. Their teams aren't any good. They've been to the tournament 3 times. They've won 1 tournament game. They were a 5 seed last year, didn't get to the first round. Like, his teams aren't any good, and now he's whining over Utah State running the score up. Like, be better than Utah State so they can't run the score up. But more importantly, Utah State. This is my kind of head coach, right? Like, we need our coaches to be up to date on all of the metrics to how to make your team look better. Now, important note, Ken Pom and Bart Torvik apparently have some garbage time threshold, but I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I would imagine a basket in the final seconds to win by 24 instead of 22 doesn't count. Like, right, like at some point the game is such a blowout that they stop factoring in the points you score. But the net ranking that the NCAA uses does not have a garbage time threshold. All possessions, all points matter. And so if you are a team on the bubble, you should be running up the score. If you're sitting here and you're on the bubble, your Ken Pom is in the 40s, or your Torvik's in the 40s, your Net's in the 40s or the 50s, whatever it is, and you're like, man, it'd be really nice if we could jump up to like 39 in some of these. You should be running the score up. You should absolutely be playing the last 2 minutes of games you're winning by 10, 12, 20 as if the game is close, and trying to score points, trying to win games by more points, because it does matter to your metrics. So I am all in on Utah State doing this. This is exactly how I would want my coaches to do it. Know what matters, know what metrics matter, and know how to, it's not gaming the system, it's just scoring more points, but know what's important and what your team should and shouldn't be playing for. In women's basketball, Chelsea Gray of the Aces won the one-on-one tournament of Unrivaled. So that's the 3-on-3 league where a lot of the WNBA players play during the winter. They have a one-on-one tournament. I will be completely honest with you. I have not watched any of Unrivaled. And like, have you watched any of Unrivaled? It's 3-on-3 women's basketball in the winter. I love watching the Aces play, right? The WNBA is a fun sport. Go to an Aces game. Aces games are a lot of fun, right? And they're also very good, right? They win a lot of championships. But I just haven't found myself interested in the 3-on-3 league at all. And I don't know, maybe it's because it's NFL playoffs and then right into the Olympics. So it's just like, all right, I don't care. And like, I like college basketball, so I'm going to watch that before I watch the Unrivaled League. I don't know if it's just a competition for my eyeballs that just, they're going to lose out to those things, but I just don't care. Like, I just have not been interested in women's 3-on-3 basketball the 2 years that they have done this. So I don't know what their ratings have been like. I don't know if it's actually a league that survives beyond a few seasons or not, but it's interesting that they're doing it, especially in the middle of a work stoppage. They have no CBA in the WNBA, so it's interesting that they're just playing in a completely different league right now. But I don't know how interested most people actually are. Also, fun story in college football, the MAC is going to take Sacramento State. They are going to pay the MAC $18 million to join the league. If you weren't paying attention, North Dakota State is joining the Mountain West and paying $12.5 million. So we now have entry fees to join conferences. And maybe the Mountain West screwed up by not holding out from $18 million from North Dakota State. But Sacramento State is going to join the MAC, and they're going to jump from FCS to FBS, and they're going to pay $18 million to the MAC, plus you got to pay $5 million to the NCAA. So $23 million is what Sacramento State is paying to join the MAC. What's funny is if you look at the MAC right now, the furthest west any team besides Sacramento State goes is Indiana and Michigan. This is one of the most eastern conferences in college athletics. They just added UMass. Massachusetts, that's like as east as you can get. And now they've got Sacramento State out in California. What are we doing? Like, God, this is so stupid. It's football only, so 4 teams a year are going to have to travel out to Sacramento, and 4 times a year Sacramento State's going to have to travel across to the Eastern time zone. But it's just so stupid. It's so dumb what we're doing in college sports that Sacramento State is now playing in the WAC. Oh, it's dumb. It's so dumb. So they're going to the WAC. North Dakota State is coming to the Mountain West. Northern Illinois, by the way, left the MAC to join the Mountain West. I know the Mountain West didn't want Sacramento State, but God, it would make so much more sense if the Mountain West had just taken Sacramento State and left Northern Illinois in the MAC. But we can't have that. We've got to have the least regionalized conferences in college sports. Last thing in Bischoff's briefs, NFL owners are afraid of report cards. So the last few years, the NFL Players Association has been putting out report cards about teams and owners, right? The NFL Players Association would ask their players during the year to grade their teams on all sorts of things, right? Travel, facilities, treatment of families, like all sorts of stuff, right? It wasn't about like the team on the field. It was about basically what's your life like as an NFL player for this organization, and do you think the organization needs to do better at certain areas? That was the whole point of it. And so they would publicize these report cards, and we would see that, oh, this team, their team plane is old or uncomfortable. This team's cafeteria sucks. This team thinks that, I mean, the Raiders, the only thing the Raiders ever really got dinged for was that like Antonio Pierce's coaching staff didn't have good time management. The Raiders actually did great in like all of the report cards. Like I think that was the only thing I can remember from the last time they did it, of like the Raiders getting a bad grade. Otherwise, they were getting A's like across the board for everything else. The Raiders don't win a lot, but as an organization, they're apparently very good to the players. So, but other teams got bad grades. The Bengals notably, the Jets notably were getting bad grades on a regular basis. So the owners won a grievance against the Players Association saying that these report cards violated the CBA. Whatever. So now these report cards cannot be made public. The NFLPA can still ask the players, hey, what do you think about certain teams or whatever, but they can't publicize them. And all this is because the owners are afraid of criticism, because NFL owners are afraid of backlash. It's pathetic. They're afraid of being held accountable for not taking care of certain things, right? Whether it's a flight, whether it's the plane, whether it's your facility, whether it's your nutrition staff, whatever it is. They don't like the idea that we publicly could find out, oh, players hate this about the Bengals. Oh, the Jets are worse at this than every other team in the league. And so now, instead of the shame, the public shame, making the owners try to improve their franchise, it's all going to be private, and they're just going to wave their hands away and say, yeah, shut up. You're lucky to be in the NFL, right? That's all it's going to be, and it's the worst. Bischoff's Briefs is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Host your next party at Battle Blast. You can book the party package, and you can have a private party room, dedicated host, pizza, soda, arcade tokens, and obviously laser tag. You can also add on a game for adults after the kids are done playing. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue, your next stop for fun in Las Vegas. So an important note, there might not be a show tomorrow. If you don't watch and listen to every moment of my show, the spacebar on my laptop is currently broken. I thankfully have a Bluetooth keyboard that I've been using in the meantime. But I'm going to get that fixed, hopefully, this week. Waiting on a part to come in. It should be coming in. So I'm not going to have my laptop for about 24 hours, hopefully about 24 hours. So I probably won't have a show on Tuesday unless that part hasn't come in. And then I'll have a show on Tuesday, and I probably won't have a show on Wednesday. One of the two. So just be on the lookout. Going to miss a show at some point this week. Now, the Raiders have hired all of their coordinators. They got Clint Kubiak in as the head coach, and now they've got an offensive, a defensive, and a special teams coordinator. The new offensive coordinator is Andrew Janocko, and he's the quarterback's coach with Clint Kubiak in Seattle, was also with him in New Orleans. So he's been with him for a few years as a QB coach. Kubiak calling plays is the whole reason he got hired, so keeping the quarterback's coach and making him the offensive coordinator, yeah, it doesn't seem like it's the most important of the coordinator hires, though Kubiak gave us a spiel about he's never called a game alone, and it takes everybody to give input on plays and everything, whatever. He's the one that got the head coaching job because Seattle's offense was great, not everybody else. But there is some continuity for Kubiak, at least in terms of who he's working with and who sort of, I guess, I would assume the second most important voice is for the offense this upcoming season. The more interesting ones, the Raiders have a new special teams coordinator, Jose Camiliasis. Oh boy, I'm going to butcher his name every time I say it, but he's the new special teams coordinator, and he's been a special teams coordinator about as long as I've been alive. And pretty much all of it is in the NFL. The last 2 years, he was the special teams coordinator at South Carolina. He won 2 Super Bowls as a special teams coordinator in Denver and LA. He spent 1 year in Denver with Clint Kubiak. So I don't know how much the offensive coordinator, an offensive coach, and the special teams coordinator worked together, but they worked together for at least a year in Denver. And I would say we saw the 2 best teams in the NFL this year were probably Seattle and LA, the Rams. And the Seahawks won the NFC Championship game in large part because of special teams. We had a muff punt by LA. And for the whole season, LA's special teams were not good. Seattle had one of the best special teams unit in the entire NFL. So it made a very big difference in who won the Super Bowl this season. I will say one interesting thing is he has not been a special teams coordinator in the NFL since the new dynamic kickoff was introduced, so he might be playing catch up a little bit there. Probably shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be that hard to catch up on the kickoff, but you are hiring a special teams coordinator who's been in college the last couple of years while this was in place. Also on special teams, Max Crosby's a big deal, right? You got to hire the coaches, but one of the storylines of the offseason is going to be what the Raiders do at kicker because Daniel Carlson's a free agent. He's been the Raiders kicker since 2018, but his contract is up and he just had his second worst season of his career by field goal percentage. And I think even more notable than that is if you look at what he's done from 50 plus yards, from 2020 to 2022, Carlson made 21 of 24 field goals over 50 yards. That's 88%, right? He was very good. But the last 3 seasons, he's made just 13 of 22. That's 59% from 50 plus yards. So he has dramatically fallen off on long kicks. Meanwhile, the NFL is seeing a huge uptick in long range field goals. So if you're the Raiders, are you moving? Like if you basically said, oh, Daniel Carlson's done and we're just going to move on from him because we don't think he can make these long kicks at a high enough rate and somebody else can do that. Or do you bring him back because you can't do better? I don't know. But that's one of the storylines is Carlson's been here for a while. He's been in Vegas the entire time. Are they finally going to move on because he hasn't been as good the last 3 seasons? Now, the more interesting coordinator, the most interesting coordinator hire is the defensive coordinator. It's probably the most important one of the 3, given that Kubiak's going to be the offensive play caller. But the Raiders are making Rob Leonard the defensive coordinator. Rob Leonard has been the defensive line coach for the Raiders for the last 3 seasons. So he's been through a couple of coaching staffs and now is going to be through another one, but this time as a defensive coordinator, not as the defensive line coach. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I know if Rob Leonard is going to be a good defensive coordinator because I have no idea if a defensive line coach is going to take the step up and be good or be terrible, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know that. I will say one thing that's fascinating about Rob Leonard getting hired is that every single report, every single story about the Raiders hiring Rob Leonard, promoting him from D-line coach to defensive coordinator, every time his name is mentioned, the same detail gets reported. And that's that he's close with Max Crosby. National guys like Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter reported that. You read the local paper here, the Review Journal, Ed Graney's story mentioned that as well. All of them. Anytime Rob Leonard is mentioned, there's this detail about, oh, he's close with Max Crosby or Max Crosby respects him, whatever it is. All of them mention it. Why? And more importantly, who's giving out that detail. Generally speaking, when things get reported on before the team makes it official, so you're hiring somebody, you're making a trade, whatever, before the team officially announces it, when you have these stories that are broken, when Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, when they all report the same thing, they're getting their info from just a few places, right? Depending on what the story is, right? It could be from a coach directly. It could be from a player directly. It could be from the player's agent more often than the player, I would assume, directly. Maybe it's the GM, right? If it's about player acquisition, something. But it's when Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and the other NFL national guys all report the same exact story at the same time, it's all coming from the same person, the same GM, the same head coach, the same agent. They're all giving that same information to all the national reporters. So when all the national reporters report Rob Leonard's the new DC of the Raiders, and all of them say, well, he's close with Max Crosby, that means someone is telling them that. They don't know that. They're not making up that detail or putting that detail in there. Somebody's telling them that. And so I think it's fair to assume that whoever from the Raiders, right? Maybe it's Kubiak, maybe it's Spytek, whatever. Right? It could be Mark Davis too, whatever. Whoever it is, when they are telling these reporters, hey, yeah, we're hiring Rob Leonard, you can go ahead and report that. They're also throwing in there, hey, make sure you tell everybody he's close with Max Crosby. So if my assumption is right, that means the Raiders are pushing this narrative. That means the Raiders want everybody to know, hey, we hired this guy that's close to Max Crosby. And that's terrible for a couple of reasons. First off, Max Crosby has really wanted a coach in the past, and it was Antonio Pierce's head coach, and that was a disaster. The track record is not great of hiring guys that Max Crosby wants. But second, and more importantly, if the Raiders actually hired a guy to be the defensive coordinator because Max Crosby likes him, then, I mean, this organization is still making horrendous decisions. Again, Rob Leonard might be a good defensive coordinator. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know that he is. But if the decision-making process, if the process here was, let's just hire the guy that Max Crosby likes, that's terrible. That's horrendous process. That is the worst way to come to a conclusion on who to hire as your defensive coordinator. Because if things go well, the D coordinator is going to be here longer than Max Crosby. You should be trying to trade him anyways. It should only be like 2 more months before Max Crosby is gone. And I know I'm going off my own assumptions here, but this organization has shown over and over and over that their decision-making process is flawed, that they do not make good decisions. So I don't think anybody should be surprised if this is exactly how the Raiders made this decision, right? Shouldn't be at all, but that's bad. That is not good. So if that's how they did it, I'm just here to tell you the Raiders aren't actually back. The Raiders aren't actually going to be good because they're still doing dumb things like this. But maybe Rob Leonard will be a good defensive coordinator and Max Crosby likes him. That's what you got to hope for. But they might have just hired him because Max Crosby likes him, which is a terrible idea. That has been Technically Correct. I'm Tyler Bischoff. Thank you so much for tuning in.